Hey YouTubers, Mike Borders with the Mike Borders channel. Thank you for watching. Today we're talking an OBD error code C0040, and in this video we're going to show you the step-by-step process of replacing your wheel speed sensor bearing assembly hub. Let's head out to the truck and get started.
Alright YouTubers outside in the garage, the very first thing we are going to do for safety purposes is disconnect the negative terminal to your battery. 10mm socket, loosen that nut. You don't have to remove it completely. Just back it off to a point where you can pull this negative lead off and position it where it's not going to hop back and make contact with this terminal. From here, we are going to remove our tire. Tire is removed and the truck is being supported by the jack stand, not the jack. That is important. Do not rely or trust a jack to hold the vehicle up the entire portion of your project. Get it supported by a jack stand. From here, I'm going to spray all of these bolts with this PB penetrating solution. And I'm going to let this solution sit on these bolts for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now on the back side, last night I sprayed those bolts. Here's the behind the scenes view. This is your caliper and bracket. I also sprayed the 13mm bolts on top and down below. And then deep in here are those additional bolts. 2 on top and 2 down below. Go ahead and spray those. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes. I allowed that penetrating solution to work into the bolts, and check out these little slots on the rotor. When it comes time to loosen these bolts, you will notice that this entire assembly will spin, not allowing you to loosen those bolts. So I grab this and come to the side of the actual rotor, and inside here, go into one of the slots, get it in there pretty good, and then rest it on the bottom portion of the caliper. And as you spin or loosen up these bolts, I've got a pretty good size breaker bar here, and this is a 17mm nut. You will notice it locks itself in place with that screwdriver, and now you can pull and loosen each of these bolts. And just continue this process for all remaining bolts. At this point, all 6 17mm bolts are removed, and do your best to stay organized during your project. I will say, from a local Harbor Freight, this breaker bar, it's all about leverage on these bolts. Something like this may not break these bolts loose. For a friendly price at Harbor Freight, you can get yourself a nice breaker bar. From here, I'll go back to the smaller socket, 13mm, and on the back side, the upper 13mm bolt of the caliper and the lower 13mm bolt. I'm going to remove this and just remove these. From here, we want to address these larger bolts. After removing those, you will carefully remove your caliper portion. And see that brake line? Do not harm that. What I'm going to do is rest that caliper that holds the pistons on a block so it's not hanging from that brake line. Again, you do not want to harm that brake line. That would not be good. From here, we got better access to the bolts. And quick update, those 17mm bolts on the back side of this actual bracket, they're very hard to get off. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to gain better access and get better leverage. On the driver's side of the vehicle, and I've got the driver's side jacked up and resting on a jack stand. At this point, I'm going to hop inside the vehicle and turn the wheel to the left. Alright YouTubers, at this point, as you can see, much better access to the rear 17mm bolts, one on the bottom, one on the top, as well as this side of the hub assembly with those 15mm bolts inside there. Once we get those loosened up and removed, we will shift this entire hub assembly in a way to better access the front bolts. And again YouTubers, it's all about leverage. There we go. And once it's loose, you can go back to your smaller ratchet. From here, on either side of your rotor, you have your brake pads. This entire bracket or brace, you can pull it off slowly and use caution because these brake pads may fall out. Now you can remove them first, that's up to you. A little heavy, try not to drop it, and set that in a safe location. From here, we are going to remove the aft side bolts here. All right, YouTubers, same thing. I use that breaker bar for leverage, and again, these backside bolts are 15 millimeter. There's what those look like. At this point, the two rear bolts are removed. I'm going to hop in the truck, turn the wheel to the right to allow us better access to the front bolts. All right, YouTubers, at this point, if you have a two-wheel drive, you are lucky. We have a four-wheel drive, so there are additional things we need to do. We are going to grab our 7 millimeter socket and ratchet and remove that 7 millimeter bolt. What we're doing now is loosening all the connection points for the ABS cable. Go ahead and pop these off. The new cable and hub assembly comes with all new securing clips here. Follow it all the way up, goes around this little nut here, and pop that out and compress these with a pair of pliers and push those out. I'll need both hands. And once you compress those little tabs there on the upper side, take note of how it is actually positioned. You have an electrical connection point way up there. As you can see, compress that upper tab there and pull the electrical connection off the actual connection point. At this point, electrical connection point is removed, and I'm going to keep that one connected, and just be aware of where your connection points go. And the last thing is that 7 millimeter bolt. At this point, the ABS cable is pushed to the side, and this is the hard part for us four-wheel drive vehicles. We have to remove this entire knuckle, and on the bottom portion here are 3 15 millimeter nuts. We have to remove those. We have to remove this, which is a 21 millimeter nut, and down at the bottom we have to remove this ball joint nut, which is a 27 millimeter. The whole reason we have to do all of that is because of this one bolt back here that we cannot get off because of this portion here. It's in the way and it will not allow any socket or ratchet to get in there. So what I'll do first is start with the 27 millimeter nut below. Again, leverage, leverage, leverage. 27 millimeter nut removed. Now we will remove our 21, and unfortunately I can't find my 21 millimeter socket, so I've got the wrench. Alright, that is removed. From here we are going to remove all 3 15 millimeter nuts up above. 3 nuts are removed, set to the side. From here we have a 35 millimeter hub nut. We will grab our 35 millimeter, and it is a 1/2 inch, and we will remove this. You'll need an air tool for that one. Again, air tools, awesome. There it is, removed. And from here, it's still pretty solidly stuck on there, and I may need to put a jack underneath and slowly jack this up. All right, YouTubers, here's what I did. Place the jack where it is not going to harm the bolt right here and the thread, and basically I hoisted that portion up. And from here, this part is tension loaded, and you can push down on it and allow you to pull these 3 bolts up and out. Be very careful, don't harm these threads. These 18 millimeter bolts, 2 on the right and 2 on the left, we're going to remove this entire ball joint portion. Making progress once again. Got the piece off, I'm going to leave it connected here. Got the air tool, and with this brace still connected but this housing off, you gain access to that bolt. All right. Look at that. After a little bit of hammering, this was pretty solidly stuck in there, and basically it is disconnected now. This ABS wire, you've got to feed through because I've still got it connected to the actual elbow part here, and I will feed this through. Got this part resting safely, and I'm going to pull the plate off. Very important when it comes time to putting this stuff back together. Do not forget this plate. Next, the rotor, and again, I'll need both hands, so you have to feed this through the entire center portion of the rotor. On the right, the old hub. On the left, the new hub. Let's start reversing the steps and putting everything back together. Again, first the rotor, next the spacer plate, And now let's position the actual elbow back on and secure it. New hub is in, very important. See that little notch back there? That is where that portion of the sensor is going to be positioned. At this point, everything is resecured on the actual hub portion, and these 4 bolts, 15 millimeter. Remember earlier in the project I removed 3, and then we had to take all of this apart to get access to this bolt. Well, before putting everything back together now, I just resecured all 4 bolts. From here, I'm going to shift it in position, connect it here, align it properly with the splines, and secure the 4 bolts below down here. All 4 bolts and nuts secured. From here, again, early in the project, I mentioned this is a spring tension type part. I have jacked this portion of the hub assembly up, and I'm going to shift this upward and at the same time push this down and align it properly in those 3 holes. Again, just be careful as you align it properly. Do not harm that thread. Making progress, the upper elbow mount is secured, and from here the ring goes in. And remember that big 35 millimeter nut. Let's go ahead and grab our air gun and resecure this. Bolt is secured, and from here we are going to realign and secure the ABS cable in all of these slots. And as we get up here, I may need both hands. And the new sensor came with a 10 millimeter bolt as opposed to that old 7 millimeter. Next, down below, the bolt joint. Don't forget this nut here. Go ahead and secure that. And once that's secured, don't forget the additional upper bolt here. Speed sensor is all secured, and loop it around that little bolt and nut there. And make sure it is aligned properly, and make sure you hear that clicking sound when you connect the electrical connection point. From here, we'll grab the caliper brace and secure that, as well as the caliper itself. Caliper is completely secured. Back to these. What we need to do is rotate the actual rotor until we can insert and secure all of these bolts. Get a good feel for the thread, hand tighten them first. Do not cross thread these, because you'll have to take these off when it comes time to replace your rotors and your pads. Remember that tool we used earlier to lock that rotor in place to loosen up those bolts? We are going to use it once again to secure those bolts. From here, let's go grab the tire and install the tire. Tire's back on, and we re-secured the negative terminal, secured the 10 millimeter nut. From here, just spend a couple minutes, make sure there are no left behind hardware that you forgot to install and secure, as well as no tools lying around. We're gonna hop back into the vehicle, start the truck, and we are hoping that check engine light goes away. As you can see, it was down in the left-hand corner, and I got my parking brake on. I'll go ahead and release that. And what I'll do now is I'll take it for a test drive, and I want to monitor it for the next 100 miles and just make sure that check engine light doesn't come back. All right, YouTubers, just did a 14-mile drive, and ABS light never came on, the check engine light never came on, so successful DIY project.
Do us a favor, below the video, you will see that thumbs up icon. Click on that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely go to your settings, turn on your YouTube notification bell. Once you do that, every video that we upload, you will be notified. You will be able to stay up to date with us, and that will be awesome. Thanks again for watching, and we hope the video helped.